Hey World Builders, welcome back to Shoutout Saturday, where I read your lore. This is number 23. I'm doing these every other week now, and so there's going to be a little bit more on this, more than likely, and hopefully it doesn't get too long, and hopefully I can get through all of it. But if you want to hear your own thing read aloud here, then come to the Discord, submit something for the daily prompt in the Build Together forum, and tag it as Shoutout Saturday, and I will read it here. And maybe we'll have to get selective at some point, because I'm doing this every other week. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but thank you so much for watching. Now let's read some lore. So for day 230, the prompt was, are there any active wars/conflicts in your world? How long have they persisted? What caused the war? And this comes from Predwin the Great in the Discord. Nugget writes, the Divine War, an entry in Time Traveler and the Immortal. Information here is translated from papyrus scrolls of various sources recollecting the events leading up to and during the war. The gods are perfect entities created without flaws, but even they fall victim to one of their greatest strengths, time. Like a stone being hit by ocean waves, cracks begin to appear. Their pride consumed them. They began to warp over time, and tensions began to rise. Starchild Aurelius was a god born to a virgin, shining so brightly that he stole the light of the sun. The gods are created directly by Stella and are infertile after that. A being like Aurelius was unheard of until now, and it's unknown why Stella created him. His half-human nature made him volatile. His body couldn't handle his magic, and he was too innately flawed to truly become a god. He grew angry and swore vengeance on the divine. Aurelius began appearing as a prophet, turning humans against the gods first. The gods thrive on worship, and being ignored only made their tensions worse. Tensions Aurelius began to abuse with his vast knowledge of the gods. He turned them against each other, causing them to fight. Many were tired of Stella's expectations of them. The gods took sides, those who remained loyal to Stella and those who wanted her to get off their backs. Gods began going missing and later killed. Many blamed Stella. Most eventually died anyway. No one knows how long the war went on. Centuries, probably. Time stopped making sense during that era. The world was torn apart through collateral damage, domains being abandoned by their god's demise, and their souls and magic getting scattered. The war eventually came to an end when the dreaded sunlight and the final king faced off against one another. Aurelius was always weak for a god of his valor, and quickly died at the hands of Moors. He fell from the sky, a fallen star seen from every edge of the world, and the sky was plunged into unnatural darkness, devoid of the sun and stars for 12 straight days. When the sun finally rose, the gods were gone and the war was over. I have to say, these are surprisingly accurate for divine records, much less ones kept by man. Other than a few missing details, the only glaring issue I see is that Aurelius isn't dead. Well, Alexandria has been collecting knowledge since the experimental era. Even up to and during the war, the gods themselves help volunteer, corroborate, and collect information here. Most of those were from Mors himself, I believe. Mors would be the only one I imagine would know all of this. I'd expect nothing less from the largest library and temple dedicated to the god of knowledge. You mentioned that you had some salvaged records from Atlantis before it sank, right? Do any of those have information on Aurelius? It all seems so far and few between sources, and if he's alive, oh, believe me, he's alive. As Emrys said this, he snapped his fingers, summoning a small golden flame to his fingertips before dragging his hand over the shelves, which quickly caught. "What are you doing?" the scribe yelled, getting cut off by a dagger made out of golden light, stabbing directly into her back. She fell to the ground as the dagger magnetized back to the hand of its owner. It truly was a magnificent library. It saddens me to see it burn to ashes, but unfortunately, I can't let this information become well known. I hope you understand. Emrys began to walk away as the fire continued to spread rapidly. He paused for a moment, looking back at the scribe, bleeding out on the floor in the inferno. "Do give my regards to Mors, will you? Tell him that if he finds me again, he can expect to lose his other eye." Interesting. Okay, cool. We have a couple layers of narrative here that I find entertaining and interesting. I was a little lost on the voices at first, but I picked it up as the reveal began to come to light. Well done. From the Great writes, everything, everyone, everywhere, an entry in Rust and Blood. Pray. Pray to those celestials above that the front lines don't shift to your backyard. Pray that your child makes it home. Pray that someday all of this will be over. Axion Salthos Hekith. So many war cries calling out all over turmoil at any second, and yet all of it is pointless. "Rust and vengeance," call out the turtling Caldathans. "Even ashes will rise," spew forth the Murricanians from their maggot-infested maws. All this conflict, this suffering, this turmoil was once thought to be a mere month or two long war. Then it was a decade. Now, nobody knows. Nobody knows when this war will end. From mightiest of oracles to most well-studied of officers, all the statistics in this conflict point to something endless, something infinite, something eternal. This war started because a god wanted to put itself back together, because Nullarod wasn't happy in a prison of its own making, because there are only so many things to contemplate in the span of infinity. If even gods can go mad, then what are mortals to do? What are they to do when at the end of this unending war, when they turn to the heavens to thank their celestial overlords and we laugh like madmen? What will they do when the celestials become anything but benevolent to them? How can mortal kind fight a celestial? How can mortal kind claim victory over the laws of existence? How can mortal kind ever, ever finally take a sigh of relief when the very heavens hold a knife to their backs? How? They look to me for answers I cannot possibly tell them, for words of calm in this turbulent, hellish place, and yet I have nothing for them but the knowledge that everything they do, everywhere they do it, is completely, utterly pointless. Nothing in this world matters, because at the very end of it, we will all know you are wrong. There is a point to everything, everyone, everywhere. Whether you stamp out bullets in a factory or scythe wheat in a field, every mortal has their place, their purpose, their definitive reason to exist, to continue life. Life will persevere, life will be victorious over all that seek its death. You look out into a war zone and see the end, the pointless restriction of weaponry. You wish to grant them hellfire so that they might at least destroy everything else with them. You are wrong, even in opinion. You loom over me, with the force of 1,000 infinities, and look out into all that carnage with your morals and patience. You refuse to do anything while everything, everyone, everywhere dies at the hands of daemons, liches, and monsters, from Havenhold to a town called Dirt. You refuse to do anything but watch. You are the reason everything is pointless. You are the reason why, at the end of all this, the end of this war, that everything, everyone, everywhere will be dead, dying, or laughing. I am the reason why everything, everyone, everywhere will succeed. My efforts, despite how cruel you make them out to be, are for the betterment of our precious everything. There will be penance for those who would wipe out everyone, and there will be damnation waiting for those who would destroy our everywhere. You only need trust me. You need only... No, you're wrong. You go out with hopes and dreams and happiness in a world of death and dismay and damned cries. You tread upon the corpses of my everyone and say they died for a cause greater than themselves and they died for something grand. You are nothing even in close relation to your primordial purpose. Your morals and reality anchor are a joke, a laughable excuse of kinship with mortals. You and only you are the cause of all this suffering, this pain, this turmoil. You would kill me where I stand if it wouldn't release my power completely. You fear mortals for their resourcefulness, yet claim that that very minute thing will be the cause of their victory, their glorious triumph over things that can innovate and destroy without my help. I would destroy myself if I could, if only to see the look in your eyes as they gain their freedom. To finally be free from your... Enough, Ophiax. Nice, that was a fun one to read. Hopefully I did a good job with the distinction between voices, trying to really work on the intonation, moving towards a bit of a, I'm having fun with the voice acting practice a little bit, kind of trying to treat it like a monologue, not one that I rehearsed, but a monologue nonetheless, and I had a lot of fun with this one. This was pretty cool. I'm probably not going to do the audio editing on the whole thing here. I assume that the full bold is the entity, though. But we'll see. Maybe I'll get around to it. This was going to be a longer video, though, I think. For day 231, the prompt was, are there any genetic curses in your world? What created it? And this comes from Prowin the Great. Nugget writes, rotten blood, an entry in Petrichor. I was always told to stay out of the family crypt as a child. It's dark down there. It's dangerous. It's dusty. There's spiders. And the stories are ones a child shouldn't hear. But I didn't care. The crypt was calm, quiet, away from people, away from sickness. Every member of my bloodline is down there. For holy blood, it only seems to cause us pain. But that's not all that's down there. That wasn't what they wanted to keep from me. The secrets of our ancestors are also down there. Sacred blood, they say. It's necromancy. There's never been a mage in our family, but yet the art, or perhaps the curse, of necromancy is burned within our blood. An holy medium of blackened rot running through our veins, binding us all the closer to the decayed. They wanted to keep this from me. Petrichor doesn't understand. Perhaps they never will. But this is my salvation. Tell me, do you know how it feels to tear out your own soul? It's a pain like you cannot possibly fathom. The entire fiber of your being is unceremoniously torn away from its home, behind the eyes with a blinding, white-hot pain that your nervous system would never be able to replicate. You feel as if you will die. You almost wish you would die. But it lasts only a moment as you are placed within the home of your phylactery. Blood runs from my mouth as I lie motionless on this floor. Tainted blood, as it's described. I feel that now. It runs black now with mold and ichor. The same blood that runs through my entire family since the founding of Petrichor. The same rotten blood of the dead. Of the decayed. Let me know how I did on that one, Nugget. I tried to really follow the tone on this one. Very cool. I like this piece a lot. That was a lot of fun to read. There's a piece of my brain that's starting to figure out this subtle French accent thing, and I'm really close to getting it a little more solid. And I was finding it in the sort of back half of reading that one. Really enjoyed this. I think it was cool that you gave me the tone info too. Like really, like having the prompt for it preps me for the tone of the whole thing, and I know how I'm supposed to read it. I enjoyed that. That was cool. Perwin the Great writes, The Mark of Hater, an entry in Rust and Blood. The bleak spawn are nothing if not compassionate. Make no doubt they are monolithic killing machines that send orcs flying and slam cultists into the ground with the force of 1,000 hammers. Still, these individuals are not seen by their kin as brave soldiers or mighty warriors. No, they are looked upon by their parents, siblings, and friends and called sick. The Bleakspawn, or the Ottomans, as they call themselves, are directly afflicted by Hader the Bleeding River. According to Bleakspawn myth, eons ago, before any other lineage treaded upon Kamar, they held dominion over the entire continent. Despite their size, upwards of 23 feet tall, the Bleakspawn became artists, poets, and actors. They held plays, art shows, and operas. They had great fun in what their eyes was a perfect society. But as with all good things in turmoil, it couldn't last. Hader, the Bleeding River, saw the muscles, cunning, and ingenuity of the Bleakspawn, and saw an opportunity to gain significant power. Hader would bend the Bleakspawn to the Celestial's will one way or another. Many of their number received visions in their sleep, a dream of a gorgeous crimson forest with vibrant red rivers flowing through it. Many resisted these dreams and were saved, both soul and body, but there were still a sizable number that truly felt like that forest could be real someday. They would need to feed it, and there was only one thing that could. Give unto me that vibrant crimson ichor. War found the Bleakspawn, a civil conflict between those who were bound by Hader and those who fought against it. While smaller in number, the Bleakspawn bound to Hader were far more martially adept than their kin. For every fallen madman, it took the lives of 4 Othmans. The conflict didn't last long regardless, as every Othman took up arms against the Bleakspawn, completely outnumbering them. They charged into their cavalry lines, a battle between giants that shook the world, and they slaughtered them all. They broke the cursed ones to the man, covered in their black blood. That blood would be the very thing Hader needed to completely corrupt their bloodline. The Mark of Hader made its first appearance. The Mark of Hader is a curse placed upon the entire Bleakspawn lineage. Every last one of them, from tallest elder to shortest babe, has a blood-red, twisted sigil somewhere along their body. It glows and sears their skin when they abstain from the vibrant, red fluid Hader demands for them to retrieve. Still, despite all of Hader's efforts, the Bleakspawn remain sound of mind to this day. They drown out their bloodlust with art and plays. They have a place in society within Chaldetha, even outside of war. They have husbands and wives, sons and daughters, all who need them dearly in this world sound of mind. And so, despite their curse, nearly all of the Bleakspawn and Kamar abstain from conflict. Those that don't, however, and choose to uptake their calling from Hader, march upon the battlefield in full-plate arcane armor. They take mighty strides over enemy trenches, shrug off rockets, and fling tanks onto their backs. They sacrifice their souls to protect Kamar, its people, and their family. If the forces of death will see them all rot, then the war giants will see them struggle the whole way. Very cool. Okay, so are Bleakspawn giants? I don't remember this. Or I should say, are the Othmans giants? And then Bleakspawn is like the result of feeding into Hader the Bleeding River's mark, basically. Very cool. Super neat take on a genetic curse. I like this. Very mythological. For day 232, the prompt was, are there any inversions of scarcity in your world compared to ours, such as gold being common and relatively worthless, or air being a hot commodity? Perwin the Great writes, the void hidden in water, an entry in Rust and Blood. Black. A deep blue darkness that stretches on and on and on. The oceans of turmoil are terrifyingly, absolutely, empty. The lakes and rivers of any continent are filled with fish, crustaceans, and other critters, but the oceans are empty. There is nothing but the cold blue water all around you. Where one would expect a kelp forest, you would only find an empty expanse of sand. Where sea docks would normally be covered in bivalves and barnacles, it is instead only clean, if not soaked, logs and metal beams. Even the inhabitants of turmoil, who know well enough that the oceans are empty, still feel a great sense of unease when they take a dive or go on a cruise in a sub. Thus far, the only things that have ever come from the oceans are the deep walkers, and those who have come from another world entirely, those who have come from anarchy. But yet, there are whispers among theologists that something may reside deep, deep in the depths, a creature that lives in the fathomless and is smart enough to call it a kingdom. Sunken hopes, sunken dreams, sunken corpses. Cool, okay. Interesting. So the inversion of scarcity here is just like complete absolute, it's not even scarcity. There is no ocean life, period. All right, cool. Now this is completely brand new to me about the Rest in Blood universe. I think that's pretty cool. For day 233, the prompt was, how loud can you be in public according to social standards? And this comes from Nukes in the Discord. The Wanderer writes, about as loud as a tree would if it could talk. The answer to this is about as varied as social classes are. If you're a standard, normal person who isn't particularly of any high class, nor of the lowest classes of the impoverished, then you're expected to not be yelling out louder than a cow mooing loudly. An exception to this exists, and that is if you are in a very ambiently loud location, such as when a herd of sheep go through town. Then you can be as loud as needed. If you are a herald or an announcer of some sort, you can yell near the top of your lungs and are expected to do so. For nobles, they can get away with a decent degree of volume, but straight-up yelling is frowned upon. The ideal max volume is that of someone speaking to a large crowd. As long as you're clear and not overexerting your voice, you're good. If you're impoverished and starving, you're allowed to be as loud as you want. You're nearly invisible anyways, so it's the least they can do is allow you to be loud. Children playing in the streets can be marginally louder than a loud cow moo without trouble. Then there's mages. Those weirdos are basically allowed to be as loud as they want. When you dress in fancy robes with pointed hats or other cool, eccentric outfits, no one is going to tell you to be quiet. That is, unless anyone is dumb enough to tell the person who melts metal with their brain to shut up. No mages are basically exempt from societal norms. I'm trying to parse the last sentence. I think there must be a typo there that I'm missing, but I could not figure out what it was supposed to say. But otherwise, this is kind of fun and interesting. For day 234, the prompt was, what are the standard burial procedures in your world? Why is it done this way? And this comes from Nugget in the Discord. The Wanderer writes, where the dead lie. When at all possible, the dead are buried in the crypts and graveyards around the churches. They're buried respectfully with their own space within those walls. It's a very rare sight to see a graveyard without a fence or wall around it. They're buried in their nicest clothes with incense and oil spread about them. If the person was of a particularly powerful status, such as a powerful wizard, a knight of great power, they're cremated. Indeed, cremation is a very popular method. Their bones and ashes are buried in the graveyards with the rest, but it's rare for those in a crypt. There are a few reasons it's done this way. The practical one is that the priests, priestesses, and holy people prepare the dead for their rest. It's less of a transportation issue. The spiritual one is that their souls will be closer to their access to the afterlife. It's there to make their transition easier. Then there's the real reason. The reason the graveyard is built inside iron fences, why they have chimes, and why they're next to a church. See, in Endron, when a church is used as a holy place, when people go there to dedicate themselves to be better, when its people live up to the ideals of truth, mercy, and justice, then it's protected. So long as they don't defile it with evil, it will protect. The religion of said church doesn't particularly matter. If it's dedicated to trying to make the world better, to be a refuge, then it will have aid. As a result, it radiates gold magic, except in the rare ones dedicated to the moon or stars, and while gold magic is weak to dark magic, it does fight it. So much so within these divine refuges that undead will burn upon contact with the light from these buildings. Now in its history, Endron has known many wars, many conflicts, and horrors. At the forefront of these in history was the Death Plague. The Death Plague was a nearly universal plague of the undead. It started with Zyria taking her place as the most powerful necromancer and raging a long campaign against many countries. When the White Blades managed to do the impossible and kill her, her zombies were no longer controlled. They went into their instincts and began to attack and spread. Many necromancers were curious about this, as the zombies were magical but didn't fall apart when their summoner died, and they reversed engineered Zyria's genius. Then the information was sold and passed along the arcane nexuses of information and into other worlds entirely. It became a catastrophe no longer limited to one world, but to nearly all of them. Necromancy was very quickly banned, dark magic made a crime, and cities desperately trying to keep themselves safe. At the height, there were more undead than living. However, while the undead didn't decay into a worse state, the living did get smarter. Better armor was made, better hygiene was invented. Huzzah, they cleaned themselves regularly, and with a united front, the remaining kingdoms slowly reclaimed their fallen cities and kingdoms. After this, every graveyard was built next to a church, so that if something went wrong, the best people to solve it were aware of it first. Okay, cool. So, pretty typical practices, but with some fun fantasy nods and sort of reasons to go along with them. I like it. Nugget writes, Mummification, an entry in Time Traveler and the Immortal. Long ago, deep in the days of the old religion, while humans were still getting used to their gift of free will, there were two siblings in the Egyptian desert. The brother was a scribe, working for the royal family. The sister was a doctor. The reasons differed, depending on the telling, from the brother angering the royal family and getting executed, or even protecting their masters and getting killed, but eventually the brother died and was torn apart limb from limb in the process. Death was not fully understood back then, but the sister did everything she could think of to reverse it, gathered all the pieces of his body, and using her medical knowledge, removed the soft tissues and organs, prone to speeding up his decomposition. She dehydrated his entire body with salts, and stored the removed organs within sealed jars filled with fluid to preserve them. She stitched him up and wrapped him tightly in bandages to piece him back together, embedding some of his prized belongings into the wrappings. She did everything to nearly perfectly preserve him, but none had gotten his heart to beat again. The sister eventually died herself, heartbroken and distraught. Though most legends don't detail how it happened, most see this story simply as the origins of the mummification process. But the true story continues with the sister waking up among the stars, looking up to see her brother's face, no longer having the names they remembered from their mortal life, but becoming the gods of life and death. Okay. Interesting. This is cool. Mummification has always been a fascinating process to me, and I think it's super, super interesting to include. I don't think I have it anywhere in Etovia. I have one place where I think there might be a kind of a mummification process, but maybe I'll talk about that someday. We'll see. From the Great writes, The Rite of Rom, an entry in Rust and Blood. The miasma is ever present. Rogash's rot hides in every corner of every room, every inch of every battlefield, and every tomb of every graveyard. If not kept in check, it will raise every fallen soldier. It will make ghouls of your sons, your daughters. It must be kept in check, and there is but one way to do so. Rebecca Cross, 37, The Death Tongue of Rom, the maiden before Hensman. The Rite of Rom is a ritual concocted by the Bleak Shore and given to the first Death Tongue Ida Cross. The Rite of Rom is a very easy ritual to follow, being primarily comprised of minimizing agony in the best way possible, happiness. The Rite of Rom started as a constant monitoring of citizen health and fulfillment. It wasn't any kind of arcane spell, just a simple edict that enforced universal happiness in Romexia. The miasma, you see, spreads where agony and sadness are prevalent. Thus, Rom, in its wisdom, sought to overwhelm the miasma with another celestial fog. Ragash has its miasma, Hader has its sanguine, and Rom, as well as Solar, both share the ambrosia, a golden fog that promotes healing, happiness, and general content with life. The area is full of ambrosia, drowned out the miasma, preventing the dead from rising and disease from propagating. Today, however, Hensman's actions twisted the definition of the Rite of Rom. It has gone from an edict of peace to a promise of war. The dead will only stay as such if we are to conquer all. We must tear down the monuments of heretics. We must destroy their weapons, their homes, their hopes. Only then will we be safe from the rot fiend, from its miasma. The Rite of Rom is our right. We alone will be victorious. Victor Hensman, 38th and last Death Tongue of Rom. Hensman's actions, as always, destroyed all that Rom had built. Luckily, both Caldatha and Castellum used the edict as it was meant to, albeit rather ineffectively. It still works better than simple prayer and belief. Okay, cool. I had not heard about this ambrosia thing yet. This is interesting. So this third counter miasma thing, counter sanguine, counter miasma, I suppose it stops both. A happy cloud, I suppose you could call it. For day 235, the prompt was, what is the most feared creature in your world? And this comes from The Wanderer in the Discord. The Wanderer writes, monoliths, the terrors of the old world. Monoliths, perhaps the thing that makes the most people give up on fighting and decide to run away. They span over 100 feet, relatively 30 meters, in length, and their entire body is made of a reflective black material akin to obsidian in appearance. They have a tail, 6 legs, and most strikingly, a flat face. Where you'd expect the head to be on their long neck is a flat surface with a glowing purple sigil. Now, the physical characteristics would be scary enough, but alone it doesn't measure up to quite a few monsters. It's everything else that makes them terrifying. They are functionally immortal, only dying if their heart is broken. That is buried in the core of their bodies. Their flesh appears like obsidian, their claws is as sharp as obsidian, and they're as durable as it. Stabs, projectiles, and all manner of attacks are more likely to chip their flesh and redirect than pierce. It takes a very strong attack to significantly hurt them. Moreover, they're relentless. When sent after a target, they won't stop until it's dead, or they are. Injuries might slow it down, but it won't stop it. Also, they don't need to eat, at least not food. The best research suggests that they just transfer inhaled matter from their gills into raw energy, no substance required. They don't drown either or get tired. They do need to sleep, but they can push that off for weeks before slowing down, and this isn't mentioning their deadliest part, the energy blasts that leave their faces. It's a blast with the radius of their head, and nothing is immune to it, save something that is indestructible. The purple blast can go dozens of feet straight into the ground, or that equivalence in mass. Even arcane shielding won't save you from it. On top of that, they're very intelligent, smarter than quite smart dogs. While that's scary enough as it is, these things were in the very old wars, created and deployed by the eldritch invaders to combat dragons, who the elder gods made to be sentinels. So the monoliths would face down the old world's most popular defenders and quite often win. It took mixing dragons and monoliths to make a new kind of dragon just to balance it out. There are some characteristics about their behavior that can either make them scarier or easier to handle. Firstly, their namesake. When they sleep, they curl up into their own form of the fetal position, their body wrapped and appearing as a rough, wide pillar of obsidian. Their sigils go out when they're asleep, meaning, as long as nothing is glowing purple, you're temporarily safe. They reproduce asexually by literally ripping themselves in half. If they can be found and killed during this process, or nearly after this process, they can be significantly easier to kill as their heart is either completely exposed or just near their side. They prefer to rest in large caves. Behavior-wise, they're all unique, save those few items. They are fiercely loyal. If you earn their loyalty, they will protect you and obey you till their bodies break down and they die. Stories have been told of the few kings who got one having it guard their grave for millennia after they died, not letting even a fly desecrate their tomb. Moreover, you can earn their loyalty. If you prove to one that you could have killed it but chose to spare it, it will be loyal to you. If you're the second person to do this, then one of two things happens. If the person was cruel or mean to it, it'll choose the nicer one, or it will join the new one, but protect the previous person. If someone saves one twice, then the next person can only hope to gain it as a friend, but not as a willing subject, unless the first person passes away. Lastly, a very unknown fact, monoliths will purr when happy. This happens very rarely, but does happen. Interesting. This sounds like a fun thing to throw at players if you were running a TTRPG of some kind. Sounds like maybe that's something that you have done. I don't remember the wonder. Do you DM? I actually do not. I don't know how I don't know that. I feel like you do, but I'm not sure. We have a big mix of people that world build and DM to people that just world build to people that just do DMing for the most part, and I'm never quite sure where someone lands on that sometimes. But when the Great writes, man rippers. Run! Run, Solar, protect me, please! Oh, Solar, Riet! Riet! The last words of a man ripper victim. Man rippers are aberrations, the mutated wildlife of Grilla. They prowl the western span and South Durdama in search of those who would offend the great consciousness by existing on its soil. Man-rippers are 4 to 6 foot long dragonflies weighing upwards of 40 pounds that hunt mortals with their psionic powers. The wings of man-rippers are covered in microscopic shards of the same pink crystals found all over Grilla. These crystals constantly shed as the man-ripper flies, creating a cloud of doom for any that would inhale the shards. When inhaled, the victim will instantly become paralyzed, stuck in place as they experience the most horrific nightmares possible, unspeakable horrors that will haunt them their entire life, if they survive. Once their prey is pacified, the man-ripper earns its namesake, landing on their victim and taking out large chunks of flesh in slow, deliberate bites. When accompanied by other aberrations, they will avoid the man-ripper's victim, preferring to hear the agonizing screams of their fellow's prey rather than kill them quickly. The victim can feel every bite, every tear of flesh from their body. They can hear every grotesque drip of blood, every crunch of their sinew. All the while, the man-ripper makes the death take as long as possible, injecting adrenaline into their victim, keeping them awake and conscious in their waking nightmare. The bites they take are deliberately calculated to be non-lethal, avoiding major arteries and organs, biting around the liver, kidneys, lungs, and heart to leave their victim alive for as long as possible, suffering their crime of breathing Grilla's air. There are numerous survivors of man-ripper attacks. Even if they were never actually bit by the aberration, the visions in their minds are more than enough to send them into a panic every time they hear the beating wings of a man-ripper, and the stories they tell to their tribesmen spread like wildfire, creating a terrifying tale of a six-winged monstrosity that will make you suffer, make you beg, make you scream. Victims of man-ripper attacks will often hear the flight of a man-ripper disguised as the hum of wind chimes, something foreign to Grala and the Kartoff, something eerie and foreboding, and thus, the man-ripper is the most feared creature in all of Turmoil. Man, that is the second. If I had a nickel for each time you created a creature that killed you slowly and gave you nightmares on purpose in Rust and Blood, I'd have 2 nickels. It's not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, Predwin. But it's still cool. For day 236, the prompt was, are there any well-known individuals or groups known for committing to solitude in your world, such as a wise hermit or order of monks? Nugget writes, Silas Whitmore, an entry in Petrichor. The 4 church heads are already very secretive, rarely seen in public, and often just stay up in their church tower making decisions on the god's behalf, only really interacting with high members of the clergy or the noble council, and even then, only barely. But perhaps the most reclusive of the church heads is Silas Whitmore, fitting for the vessel of the keeper itself. Little is known about him. Nothing is known about him. He just showed up one day and seemingly became a church head overnight after his predecessor retired. And it will likely stay this way. Much like how the nobles have to forfeit some of their blood when they get sworn into the council, the church heads have a similar process to go through when attaining their position, albeit a bit more extreme than a simple cut on the hand. The keeper's vessel traditionally cuts out their own tongue, and Silas is no difference. Unable to talk, he now only collects information and cannot share. Makes one wonder what kind of secrets the gods whisper to him that requires the removal of his tongue to keep hidden. Monks who work specifically with the keeper are also very solitary, as one might expect. Even if not to the same mute extremes as their church head, the churches of the keeper are often hidden, only accessible by those who know about them. If you do know where they are, they're some of the most expansive libraries you can think of. Just don't expect people to be very talkative. Cool. I really like the Petrichor church hierarchy and system that you've come up with, Nugget. It's really close to real life, which makes it feel really grounded, but then has your own little mixed in aspects that make it feel very fresh and interesting, and I like it a lot. So for day 237, the prompt was, similar to cats and dogs, are there any common pets in your world? And this came from Penelope D4D in the YouTube comments. And thank you very much, Penelope, and if you're watching this, hope you enjoy what Predwin has written for you. Predwin the Great writes, Kindreds, an entry in Rust and Blood. Context. An aberration in Rust and Blood refers to the mutilated wildlife of Grala. The rituals to sever an aberration... Oh, good gracious, my voice. The rituals to sever an aberration from the great consciousness of Grala are no easy feat, and often aren't worth the hassle, as severing aberrations removes their self-perpetuating magics that allow them to live forever without sustenance. The largest of aberrations starve within minutes if they are severed, so only the smallest are worth any kind of trouble. The primary reason for any Kartoff tribe to sever an aberration is for combat purposes. Aberrations are incredibly deadly combatants, even when separated from their cruel director. Thus, severed aberrations can be used by Kartoff tribes to properly defend against the larger hordes of hostile aberrations that may occasionally attack encampments. After all recourses must be directed to the betterment of the Kartoff and the Havenites, right? Turns out even the Kartoff need something to cuddle as they sleep, and the Kindred make for the perfect bed partners. Kindred were once man-rippers, which you read before, aberrations famed for eating hypnotized mortals alive after they inflict a psionic nightmare upon them. Tribesmen, in search of a companion, will capture and sever a man-ripper, turning it into a kindred. This transformation is non-cosmetic for the man-ripper, other than a gradual decrease in size over several weeks, eventually shrinking to 60% of its original size before its severing. Tribesmen will often bejewel their kindred to help with ownership identification. These jewels must be reapplied each time the kindred sheds its skin, encouraging the tribesmen to stay active with their winged pals, ever searching for the resources to make glues, in other words, keeping the Kartoff busy hunting and providing for their tribe. During rare opportunities of leisure, kindred are known for sleeping on top of their owners with their large wings dispersing heat, cooling an area of around 5 feet by about 10 degrees with prolonged idleness. Their lightweight and innate psionic abilities make for an excellent bed partner as they become aware when their owner wishes to move their legs or flip over, moving alongside them in perfect coordination as to not bother their owner while they sleep or rest. Kindred are immortal as long as they are kept fed. They don't require sleep, nor are they affected by temperature, making them perfect companions for long journeys over combat, as their weak frames are easy enough to swat away by the medium-sized or larger aberrations within Grala. Very cool. Okay, neat to see. I'm glad that in this one Shoutout Saturday, we get to see both sides of these man-ripper creatures. That was kind of cool. Thank you for sharing this with us, Predwin. For day 238, the prompt was, what is the most popular vice in your world? Describe its origin, who cultivated and cultivates it, the rituals surrounding it, its permutations, and its effects on the user. What is the general consensus surrounding it? Are there any groups opposed to it? And this comes from Carhop in the Discord. Nugget writes, the most evil of the gods, an entry in Petrichor. While people still generally have their own moral fiber separate from the church, it's no secret that the nature of petrichor's gods encourages vice as a virtue for their religion. Despite none of the gods being seen as good, there is one that typically stands out as being described by many across all of the estates as the most outright evil: the avarice. The black god of wealth, famine, extremes, and greed, the avarice is a god despised by most, but worshipped by all. You'll be hard-pressed trying to find anyone who hasn't prayed to it, hoping for just a few more coins weighing down their pockets, regardless of what class you're in. The aristocracy loves this god, as one can imagine. After all, it gave them everything they have. The common folk hate it for those same reasons, but always hope that one day it may find favor in them. It's always black and white. You are either feasting with a spoon for every bite, or you are starving. You have everything or you have nothing. There is no in-between. The avarice changes people in a way and at a rate none of the other gods can. People are not the same when they go hungry. People are not the same when they are rich. People change when they are desperate. The avarice is the reason bread is becoming unaffordable, while the rich still rot their teeth with sugar and wine. Cool. I like getting some details on a specific entity within the petrichor pantheon. Very cool. Probing the Great writes, revisiting Enlightener, an entry in Rust and Blood. Enlightener is a psionic drug similar to mundane cannabis in appearance. Enlightener is used by the Kartoff to calm their nerves while out on the hunt, preventing some of the more dangerous wildlife from smelling their fear. Enlightener is used to greatly increase focus in both combat and crafting, making it a universal drug for all forms of work. This facet alone of the drug has caused almost all of Grala to accept and use Enlightener in everyday life. The Seven Saints in particular are quite fond of Enlightener, as it calms their nerves enough to safely commune with the angels of Ram without risking significant celestial corruption to their mortal forms. The wider Remexian population, however, has been led to vilify Enlightener, hunting and burning any would use the drug as witches. Castellans have been led to believe that Enlightener is for the weak. It is a coward's vice, to calm their nerves in the face of glorious combat. The current warlord of Grashum, Argus Thane, has completely outlawed use or possession of Enlightener, a crime punishable by steel binding. The Adamantine court has completely and utterly banned Enlightener. It is seen as cause for rebellion and or lowered efficiency in all workplaces. Kamar's factions have also banned Enlightener use, courtesy of General Ilirwin, who took one look at happy, functional soldiers and thought that Enlightener was corrupting their morals. The Nyan Church sees Enlightener as something to be cherished, however. Their firm grip on trade nearly worldwide has forced the factions they work with to allow the catfolk of the Nyan Church to possess and use Enlightener despite any laws that may forbid it. Cool, we got more details on this Enlightener. I do this too sometimes, Predwin, where I take a prompt and I'm like, oh, I've already written something about this, but it could use some more work. And this was cool, giving us a little bit of an overview on who does or doesn't sort of support the use of this within their nation or culture group. For day 239, the prompt was, what organizations exist in your world for artists to network and perform in? This also comes from Carhop in the Discord. Probably the Great writes, Siege Artisans and the Art Culture of the COR, an entry in Rust and Blood. Molded from blighted clay, cut from coarsest cloth, hammered from most blighted iron. To make art is to make war. Take up your tools, brothers and sisters, and make art. Guthor Blooddrinker, arch-cultist leader of the blooming flowers of his fetidness sect. The children of Ragash are very culturally driven. Their weapons, tools, and vehicles are all artistic in their own way. One faction of cultists, the Gathraid Athraistis, aka Siege Artisans, are essentially a massive number of cultists that prioritizes the creation of Murricanian art. These artisans craft all manner of items, from simple clothing to the mighty Svatnagas, the Dreadnoughts. Art is integral to Murricanian weaponry. They believe that despite Ragash's nature as a destroyer, it still appreciates and even loves art, especially art made for none other than Ragash itself. The cultists use a lot of sea-based artwork, clams, crabs, and seabirds. In their work, they see these creatures as angels that will one day rise from the depths of turmoil's oceans and give life to the void. There are numerous styles that depart from this standard, however. Some artists tried to capture the unblessed, or in other words, the non-miasmic form with their art, drawing normal mortals engaged in all manner of activities, commerce, debates, lovemaking, trying to capture the lives of non-believers as their culture has no need to be destroyed just because they oppose Ragash. Turned mortals, Caldathans, Raonians, and others are encouraged to spread their own culture amongst their sects and make art from the time before their ascension to immortality. Some sects have been completely overtaken with foreign cultures, either because over time, nothing but ex-Caldathans or other non-Murricanian peoples comprise the sect, or from a sense of awe from true Murricanians to the culture of others. The best way I can describe this is like weebs. And thus, the Siege Artisans draw from all sources for their pieces, from all walks of life. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm recording this 2 days after I recorded the first part because I had no time to record yesterday, which was actually Saturday. And I am thinking back to the thing where you said that oceans were empty. Is that not turmoil? I'm assuming it's not turmoil, but I wanted to point that out because I'm like, okay, wait, though. So there are sea-based creatures in turmoil's oceans. And which ocean was the other one? I'll maybe go back and check it later. I do not have time to do that right now, but let me know, Predwin, if I have confused something. The Wanderer writes, Coalition of the Arts. Royalty, like art, some more than others. Even the most utilitarian rulers nearly always see the value of at least portraits to remember events. While most court mages can create an arcane reflection that perfectly captures an image, akin to what Chalantier called a camera, however that was supposed to work. However, these capture things perfectly, but most rulers don't want a straight canvas, they want portraits. This created the need for skilled artists who could paint. After the Spell Wars Cataclysm, most of Aratane, Central Endron, needed to be rebuilt and refounded. From that arose the nation of Athal, who, unlike nearly everyone else, didn't banish all the other mages. Now, Athal, being very unlike every other kingdom, valued peace, art, and freedom above all else. This led to them being very wealthy in both arcana and the arts, and other kingdoms kept importing its artists. This got messy enough that Athal started the Coalition of the Arts, a network among royalty and artists that made it possible for artists to be commissioned from across the entire continent, and after a while even to neighboring ones. Soon, most kingdoms adopted some support for the coalition, which eventually became apolitical and popular. The coalition has 3 parts. The schools where new artists train and veteran artists refine. While artists can join without going through the school, it is a very popular option and has a significantly higher acceptance rate. The average student studies under assigned mentors, groups of 7 to 12 usually, for about 4 to 6 years before they're considered full students. The second part is the artists themselves. They usually set up shop in their homeland or where a noble pays for them and do remote commissions from there, as well as art for regular folks. When commissioned for larger projects, they'll be given a price, choose to accept or deny, and travel abroad. The third part of this is the advisors. Their role is to know the local noble populace, know their interest in art, and to know of other artists in the guild. When a noble wants an artwork or architecture, they're also part of the coalition. The advisor will get a rough idea about how much the project will cost, whose skills are needed, and whose designs would most please the patron. Advisors are usually retired artists or ones whose art capacity has been limited, though this isn't a requirement. Quite often, small projects will be done by the advisors themselves. Advisors also select which artists will join the coalition. 40 will be selected, and if 10 approve, a new artist can join. This allows for a standard of quality to exist, but for difference in style and preference do not impede it. The coalition also offers a major benefit to artists, that being a form of diplomatic immunity. If a member of the coalition is detained, robbed, or imprisoned, then a strike is given to the offender. A restitution must be made to both the coalition and the artist for it to be lifted. While in place, you won't have coalition access, making artwork very difficult to get. Also, free travel is often seen as a large boon that artists are more than eager to take. Moreover, even without commission, members are usually more than welcome at any estate for a while, so long as they assist in a commission or two. This allows many artists to travel across the lands without crippling fear of starvation. Interesting. There's a lot of detail here. That was really well done. I like this coalition idea. It seems like well thought out and pretty fleshed out. Cool concept. Now, we didn't end up with any Shoutout Saturday submissions for day 240, but the prompt for that day was, write about a technology that has existed for some time that has recently become accessible to common folk of your world, and this was inspired by Predwin the Great's previous interesting interpretation of a different prompt. For day 241, the prompt was, are there any special classification systems that exist in your world? What are they for? And this comes from Predwin the Great. Predwin the Great writes, interloper classifications and rankings, an entry in the guild setting. This document is classified under Section 5 of the Light Information Dispersal Grimoire. Only share with fellow collaborators or trusted members of the public. Gythus depends on your discretion. Classification. The classification section of an interloper's archival represents the non-threat related aspects of an interloper. These qualifications almost never have anything to do with the danger of an interloper and are instead reserved for cataloging by type within the actuary. Aether. An interloper that has yet to be effectively banished, either because the interloper is missing, the ritual for its banishment has not been discovered, or because guild has better uses for the interloper while it remains in their control. Interlopers under the latter category are known as collaborative objects. Adamantine. An interloper that is innately hostile or aggressive. Again, as aforementioned, this has nothing to do with the danger of the interloper, instead used to ensure that any collaborators or rift touch versed in adamantine class interlopers is aware that the interloper will immediately use its rift energy to cause harm rather than requiring a prerequisite event to engage its rift energy. Silver. Ghosts, revenants, poltergeists. A silver class interloper is an ethereal, untouchable entity. These interlopers are often unbanishable, either because they are hard to pin down and enact a ritual, or because they are so dangerous that banishment is incredibly dangerous to any scribes that are sent to banish them. Still, many silver class interlopers are banished every month, so take heart in the knowledge that Guild has the situation under control. Orichalcum. Orichalcum class interlopers are perhaps the easiest to banish of any class, as simply killing or destroying the interloper is enough to banish them. There are numerous cases of gargantuan interlopers being banished by angry members of the public that fling pitchforks and torches at the entity until it perishes and is promptly banished. Malachite. An interloper that cannot be killed or destroyed and must be banished via ritual. Orichalcum class interlopers can either be banished physically or by using a ritual, but Malachite class interlopers must be banished via ritual. On top of this, Malachite class interlopers often require more complex rituals to banish. Examples include those that require use of either the lamb's head method or the knoll formula. Palladium. Interlopers that are innately connected to and can more easily manipulate rifts. Palladium class interlopers often also fall into the Malachite classification, as their abilities are often the cause of being indestructible or untouchable by collaborators. Palladium class interlopers are also more than capable of teleporting and going missing, completely vanishing for days, weeks, sometimes decades, leading to our next category. Cobalt. An interloper that is known to exist within the bounds of Gythus but is missing. These interlopers often don't represent much threat, though that is not to say they are harmless. Even left alone, all interlopers exude rift energy, which can cause rift storms if not properly contained. Rift storms can be used to locate Cobalt-class interlopers, as their prolonged idleness causes frequent storms in the region surrounding their position. Bronze. Bronze-class interlopers are completely sapient and capable of rational thought. Bronze-class interlopers are most often among the adamantine classification, as nearly all interlopers innately seek the destruction of Gythus and its people. Some Bronze-class interlopers, however, are shown to be compliant with orders. These demons directly assist Guild in either archival or delve operations. Ouroboros. An interloper that can be banished, but will inevitably return. Some interlopers return as different clones of the original interloper, such as manifestations of Interloper 333. But interlopers of the Ouroboros classification are the exact same interloper returning over and over again. Examples include Interloper 1, the Nexus, and the Interloper 100, Plaque of Plagues. These interlopers are not copies or duplicates. They're the very same assailant as last time, come once more to attempt our destruction. All interlopers in this classification are completely uncompliant, even if they fall into the Bronze classification as well. Ranking. The danger of an interloper. This part of the interloper's archival represents any dangers one might face when facing it, either in combat or when attempting arcane banishment. Uriel. Poses an immediate and immense danger to all within its rift area. Uriel rank interlopers earn the highest skill counts among our ranks and often require immense sacrifices to banish or contain if plans are not properly laid out. These interlopers are the highest cause for collaborator turnover rates and loss of collaborative objects. Omega. Constantly threatening in its nature, an Omega rank interloper can be dangerous if not approached properly. These interlopers are often banished without incident, but events can still escalate quickly if proper precautions are not taken. Never get confident when handling any interloper, lest your bravado be the end of you. Phi. Almost completely harmless unless mishandled. This ranking is often reserved for collaborative objects or demons. Still, never grow comfortable around any interloper. Death and dismemberment may still occur if proper precautions are not taken. No matter how innocent or harmless an interloper may seem, all of them are capable of destruction. Tau. An interloper that either hunts down or affects a single individual at any given time. These interlopers are often of the Aether classification, as their nature usually results in only their target being able to perceive or interact with them. These interlopers often fall into the Uriel rank as well, as they often are hostile and actively seek to kill their targets, often unavoidably. Nu. An interloper that attacks the mind through dangerous information, mind control, or instant death when certain information is heard, seen, or felt. Scribes hold a particularly high resistance to Nu rank interlopers, but no matter how strong a mind is, prolonged exposure to a Nu rank interloper is dangerous. Thank you for taking the time to read through this archival. Remember, Guild protects all that would collaborate. Do not share this grimoire with any unauthorized individuals. Well, I hope Guild wouldn't mind me sharing this with the YouTube channel, but thank you very much, Predwin, for giving us this really detailed rundown. We're getting the classification details now of Guild, which is super cool. I am going to try and keep this in mind when I read future Guild stuff. I am going to forget inevitably, but I like that I have this in my vault now that I can go back and kind of check it out if I need to. For day 242, the prompt was, what is a unique form or medium of art in your world? And this comes from The Wanderer in the Discord. And The Wanderer writes, arcane paints. While many art forms and mediums exist in Endrin, there exists one that's often the most sought after. This being arcane paints, though the medium is almost always a special made tool resembling a pencil. When used by someone who is trained with it, that pencil can draw in any color, akin to what a pencil would, but with 1,000 times the options. It can also fill in areas, move already drawn objects around in their drawing, and a feature beloved by nearly all, can move drawings off the canvas, being able to hide drawings information away from prying eyes. Perhaps another aspect of this medium that is beloved is the fact that details can be grown and shrunk, allowing for a theoretically infinitely detailed canvas. A few surviving art pieces from the old world were so detailed that a magnifying glass didn't reveal where the intricate lines were. His art form also serves a practical use in scrolls and spellbooks, allowing for a ludicrous amount of detail to be put onto one canvas. It does have its downsides, however, the largest being cost. An arcane writing instrument is worth thrice the average person's weekly salary, and while they can make color on any surface, they require special surfaces that have been both infused with magic and enchanted in order to get all of the features noted. In addition, to get the kind of details that most expect requires a significant amount of time making. Cool. Okay, so we got digital art functionality in a pencil in the medieval times via arcane paints. That's fun. This is a cute idea. I like it. And for our final entry for this Shoutout Saturday number 23, Nugget writes, a song to bring back into tune, an entry in Petrichor. Magic is common enough in Petrichor, but few have innate instinctual magic. Edward is one such person, otherwise known as a mage, and he casts through art, more specifically music. Any artist will tell you that it is a fine line between inspiration and insanity. It's commonly theorized that before the gods changed, the frenzied was a god of the arts. Once a guiding and unseen hand to muse those blessed by its touch, now whispers dissonantly into the ears of those unfortunate enough to hear. Edward weaves and intertwines magic into his work with every note he writes with intent. He deconstructs melodies, layers things on top of each other, and lets the muses guide where he puts the next note. In a way, it can be treated like a science, though with less defined rules. His overlap of music and magic is what made him famous, as his voice and playing are unnaturally beautiful and touch the soul in a way no mortal could on skill alone. Most spells can be cast simply with intent being put into his song while singing. His magic is intuitive, after all, but some require far more trial and error and actively working for months or years to create and write. Edward wrote a song specifically for Ambrose on their wedding day, a song he still sings for him when he needs it. When his health started to decline, Ambrose turned to necromancy, though his body still rots. Edward still sings to his beloved Rose to calm him down through the adverse effects of the forbidden craft, but has also been staying up late himself, rewriting and reworking that same song he wrote for their wedding, hoping that when the song is finished, the spell he's working on will reach his severed and rotten soul and bring his dear husband back. Just needs to finish the song. Just needs to finish the song. He just needs to finish the song. He just needs to finish the song. He just needs to finish. Keep singing, Edward. Maybe one day the gods will hear you. Ooh, that is a somber note to end on, Nugget, but thank you very much. Well written, as always. And thank you to everyone who submitted. Now, this is going to be probably the longest one we've ever done since I did about 2 weeks worth. Now, Nugget and Probably the Great especially were kind enough to kind of select a few specific pieces to include. Since I am doing this every other week now, I don't want to actually lump 2 entire weeks worth of this into 1 week because I don't know if I'd be able to get it out in a reasonable time. I'm already going to be late on this one due to its length, but also a few other factors. Hopefully in the future, these are less late, less often. But thank you, everyone. I think this is going to work for the foreseeable future as long as people are kind enough to work with me on maybe not getting everything that they would normally, and I do appreciate these people very much. Now, if you want to see your own work here, like I said before, come to the Discord, submit something for the daily prompt in the Build Together channel, and tag it as Shoutout Saturday, and you will see it here. And if you really want to see more of this, want to see more of the channel, want to support the community, then please like, subscribe, comment, do all the things that you're supposed to do on YouTube or whatever for the algorithm. And if you don't, that's totally fine. It'll all remain free as always, and thank you again so much for watching. Have a wonderful Saturday or whatever day it is that you're watching this. Goodbye.